Alright guys, here is how I beat the time limit category mission versus stage 2 against Super Buu in the new Majin Buu Saga edition of Red Zone. So one thing I'm going to say straight off the bat is if you're missing some of these top units, top EZAs, I'm looking at EZA Fizz Buhan, EZA Gotenks, EZA Kefla. This is probably going to be a bit of a struggle for you on global. It's already a struggle as it is because you just don't have too many options within the time limit category. Second is you're going to need to depend on quite a bit of RNG and quite a bit of luck, which naturally happens in Dokkan, but more so with this category mission. If this was on stage 1, especially with no cap limit on your attempts, it would definitely be a lot easier, and just naturally stage 1 is easier than stage 2. But because it's on stage 2 and there are limit attempts, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, especially with how much damage Super Buu is doing on his AoE super. Because that AoE super, even though it's not a skill and he has a super separately and it's just one AoE super, it can still catch a lot of these units on the team. But one good thing is this is one of the missions where you are allowed to use support items. So I know there's a lot of you that do no item runs. If you want to do that, that's by all means your prerogative, but take full advantage. Bring your Whis, bring support memories, use everything at your disposal. So in terms of the team build, I'm not gonna lie, you're probably thinking this isn't the best team out there to use. This is what we have available to us. I mean, I might be missing like 1 or 2 units here and there, which if I am and they are good for this, by all means use them. But this is the team I used, and it did take a few attempts, and this is where the RNG and luck is going to kick in. The Tech LR Super Gogeta is purely here for their lead, or mainly here for their lead, so I can actually have a category to run all these units on, because of course they do lead time limit with the 170. One other thing that's very handy with them, and this is the only other reason why they have actual use to this team outside of their lead, and that is for their Scouter. They're not here to do damage, although the type advantage against Super Buu in phase 2 does help, mainly to do some extra damage, but the most important thing, to tank just a tiny bit better. But that is the Scouter. So for the most part, you're going to want to leave them in slot 3, and you want to keep them out of harm's way as much as possible, because you need to maintain as much HP as possible. So of course you can trigger the active skill, get them transformed into Gogeta, get the Scouter out. But of course you want to save that until you get to Super Buu, or just as you're transitioning into Super Buu, so you can have it in there for as long as possible. So of course you're seeing where that AoE super is coming from and being able to deal with that. Then we have VB, who's kind of pretty much the same. The only difference is no Scouter, and he's mainly here for damage. You're going to want to keep him out of harm's way in this first phase for as much as possible. All of the possible additionals, especially if you do have dupes, because mine's at 55%. So if you do have dupes, there's going to be crits, more damage, and extra additional. They're going to help you get this through this phase a little bit quicker. But again, leave him in slot 3. Utilize that dodge chance he has in slot 3. Keep him out of harm's way until he gets to VB. Ideally, you want him transformed into VB by the time you get to Super Buu, because then you can use his, you know, guaranteed dodge on his first turn transformation to dodge the AoE super, and all the normal attacks coming your way. And then once he's in VB, because of all the possible additionals, he's actually going to do some handy damage depending on how many times he super attacks, and if you hit some crits here and there. But he's mainly here for the dodge. Then we have both EZA Kefla and Gotenks. Now this is where you're going to be depending on a lot of the RNG, because one of these units, or maybe both, are going to be on one of the main rotations. Gotenks is going to deal good damage, so is Kefla. Kefla does have type disadvantage in the second phase, so you are going to need to be careful in the AoE super. That's where hopefully getting lucky with certain units, or the better units that are tanking super attacks are being hit with them, and that's where the RNG really does come in. You need the right units to get hit with the supers early on if the super attacks are coming out, because if the wrong ones are being hit, that's it. The run potentially could be over or is over, and then even more RNG. So because if units like Gotenks and Kefla aren't dodging, even VB in slot 3, but if Gotenks and Kefla aren't dodging, because one of these is bound to be on rotation at some point or another, if they don't dodge, they will take a chunk of damage, and depending on where your HP's at, you may die. It's as simple as that, and it's the same with the second phase against Super Buu with the AoEs, even more so with Kefla having type disadvantage. But by then she'll be fully transformed, So normals will be fine, but that AoE super will catch them. So that's what I'm saying. You need to depend on a lot of luck, a lot of RNG, and hopefully the Dokkan gods are on your side, so units like this are dodging more often than not, especially when it comes to supers. But Gotenks will be fine on normals as well. Him building up dodge chance is huge. Yes, it's not guaranteed, but you know, once you get to Super Saiyan, and especially if you get to Super Saiyan 3, which we do actually get him transformed to Super Saiyan 3, having all of that dodge chance and building it up as well upon dodge, very, very useful, very, very handy. And you can get him to guaranteed dodge where you won't even have to worry about him. And then of course, once he gets to SSJ3, he's doing some very, very good damage. There's crit built in. He will help a lot near the end. Again, another reason why it's very handy maintaining your HP, having the scouter up, and maintaining your items for as long as possible. Kefla, kind of the same. Again, if you're going to need her to crit more often than not, so dupes will be handy. I feel like she does have crit on her passive, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Of course, with her stacking the whole time, she'll be doing a ton of damage as well. In fact, even if she doesn't crit, I saw her do quite a lot of damage for a unit that has type disadvantage. So she's going to be very useful for that, especially in the second phase. And mainly because Super Buu has his skill of healing, and he actually heals quite a lot of health. And his health bar is quite meaty. It's quite a chunky health bar. He's tanking very well against this team. I mean, I'm not surprised. It's a slight mishmash of units. So her doing the damage she does by stacking, crits from Gotenks, crits from a lot of your units, and additionals are going to help. That's where even more RNGs rolling in. Getting those additionals, getting those crits, avoiding super attacks on the wrong units, having those other units actually dodge the AoE super, and super attacks from Evil Buu in the beginning are huge at getting you through this run. This is why it took me so many attempts. It will probably take you so many attempts, and you are depending on quite a lot of RNG. Now Buhan, he's going to be doing a lot of the lead work. I'm not going to lie to you. He'll be doing a lot of the leg work. From early on, yes, he has type disadvantage, but he's going to be stacking. You know, that guaranteed additional to help him stack attack is huge. He has that 70% chance to guard, 30% chance to dodge. If super attack comes his way, you definitely want him to dodge it. So again, that's even more RNG. He's going to be doing a ton of damage because of all the possible supers he can do, especially early on while stacking. You have dupes in him, crits. He can really do a dent, or put a dent into not only Evil Buu, also Super Buu. So again, as long as you can get him to stack 4, or as long as he stacks 4, massive help in the long run. And then once he's transformed, that guaranteed guard is huge. And not to mention that 20% start of turn healing. It may not be a lot because you're not coupled with other Buu units, but it definitely helps. Like, look at this rotation. We take a ton of damage, but everyone else dodges. You're going to need to depend on that quite a lot. And then we have the friend lead, which is SSJ3 Goku. Now, you only need 6 time limit category units, and another reason why I built this team the way it is not only because it's actually one of the best team builds you can use currently on Global, but also so you can have SSJ3 Goku as a friend, as your 7th unit, which not only do all of these units tie into on the team, but could take from his 200% lead as well, and just because he's so good. Especially if you can pick up a Rainbow Friend, he'll do a ton of super attacks, which early on is very helpful at getting through Evil Buu very quickly while having type advantage. He also, of course, starts with 90% damage reduction in the beginning, along with type advantage as well. Especially while you're early doors building up his 30% damage reduction on super as well. He's literally untouchable in that first phase. Like, he'll be taking no damage. You want him on main rotation. You want him sitting in slot 1 at all times. And of course, he helps out a lot here as well. But he helps out a lot in that beginning phase where a lot of units are building up passives, stacking, getting through transformations. Goku can tank everything at that point because of all of that damage reduction. And as I said, he's doing a ton of damage. Now, if you have other units you can use, this one was pretty much I just didn't have another option. I tried Super Buu, but his type disadvantage and him being at 55% for me made him an absolute liability against Super Buu. Is why I put the LRSSJ4s on. Now, they don't really have too much screen time. They do not appear too much in this run whatsoever. But they did actually help. And again, this is where you're depending on RNG a lot. So they didn't get to stack up next to hardly whatsoever. I think they stacked up once, maybe twice off of 1 turn appearance. The second time they were around, I'd done enough damage for them to not even get a super attack off. So they've barely stacked whatsoever. The active skill can help from some extra damage, but it doesn't really do too much because, again, we haven't stacked. If you can get the rainbow key spheres, of course, you're building up damage reduction. But again, the AoE super will catch him if you're not careful, just because you don't have too much time to stack. Or at least I didn't. Especially early on, facing off against Evil Buu, who has type advantage. But at least they have that first turn guard, but even then it's only going to do so much. But this is where the RNG kicks in. Now, you could stop, especially with Gogeta's Scouter up, you could see where super attacks are coming from. You're going to see where his skills coming from as well for the healing, which of course you want to stop as much as possible. If you can get an 18 key super off of him and take advantage of it, you can of course nullify one of those actions or disable one of those actions, which is massive. I don't get to do that, but if you can, fully take advantage of it. The other thing is, and this is where the RNG kicks in once again, is Super Buu's going to hit his super attack this turn. The AoE is going to come out. SSJ3 Goku would have been fine, but he does nullify it and counters. Kefla dodges, which is again why you're going to need to depend on a ton of RNG. But Gogeta also counters the super as well. If he didn't, we guarantee he probably would have been dead. That counter was huge. Does a 1.7 mil crit, doesn't do too much, but some extra damage, you're not going to complain. But that counter itself is huge. And this is why on global, you're depending on so much RNG through counters and mainly dodges. On top of, as I said, super attacks hitting the right units early on who can actually tank them. So you can maintain HP, maintain items. This is why there's so much RNG dependent on this run and why this mission's quite difficult on global. And the only last thing to add about this team is also the fact that once you transform Buu tanks into Buhan, he will also, once per turn upon 18 key super, nullify or disable an enemy's action. I completely forgot he did this. I think it might have already happened by now, or maybe not. But I completely forgot he did this. So in the rotation, there was attacks after all of my units had attacked. So there was attacks in slot 1, 2, and 3. Actually, it might be here. Is it here? No, it's not here. But I think it might have already happened. But there was a rotation where all of Super Buu's attacks were in each slot, but they came after I attacked, which is great. Especially when you can see where the super attack is coming from. I put Buhan in slot 2. I should have put him in slot 1 because he had one attack after I super attacked with Buhan, or after I super attacked in slot 1. And that one attack, which I completely forgot he could do, the whole disabling enemy action thing, was a super. So I go from taking like 200k in that turn, lucky enough everyone else dodged that needed to dodge. But I went from taking 200k on a super where I literally would have took nothing. If I didn't continue to get the RNG I needed, just like him dodging there as well, by the way. And that's where Gogeta's type advantage kicks in. It really actually helps, especially with an item active. But if I didn't continue to get the luck I needed, that super attack generally could have ended our run, or could have been the lead up to my run ending and me dying. So again, another thing to take advantage of. But this is how I beat the time limit category mission on global. If this team build does help, do let me know down in the comments and drop a like as well, and subscribe if you are new. All the support is very much appreciated. But I'll see you in the next video, guys. Hopefully this helps and hopefully you beat the mission. Take care, have a great rest of your day, and peace.